There's this old adage that it's not that AI is going to take your job or replace you. It's that people who are using it could. And we see that real time. And then you compare it to a broker who is still spending, 60, 70% of their day poring over dozens of documents and just doesn't have the time to spend with their customers to build those relationships, to work on new leads. One of those two is going to grow more quickly and wind up replacing the other. We obviously believe that strongly, and we're here to help those that are keen on the, being the former.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mortgage Tech Talks. I, of course, am your host, Tom. Today, I am speaking with a guest from Purelend.ai. He's one of the founders, Lucas Scheer. We had a great conversation today. We covered a whole bunch of topics. He's been in AI for almost a decade, so he's been there from the very beginning and then all the way through kind of the whole ChatGPT hype revolution to today, where he started Purelend, which is all around helping brokers collect documents, verify down payment, and verify stated income, organizing all those documents in a way that your lenders will love. We get more into that in the episode. We talk all about AI, its implications on the industry, and some of the things he's seen in the early days of Purelend. It's a great episode where I personally learned a ton. I think these guys are doing some very interesting things in the mortgage space. I think it's going to be one that everyone should listen to because it's going to, I think, be a blueprint for what we can expect in the future. We'll see you on the other side. Hey, Lucas, how are you?
I'm good, Tom. How you doing?
Yeah, excellent. Well, really excited to have you on. I know that, I knew Wayne from a few years back from a, kind of random coincidence bumping into him, and then got a chance to reconnect more recently. I featured you guys before I actually even bumped into Wayne on the podcast, maybe a month or two ago now. And then that's when Wayne reached back out. And I'm always a little bit worried when I do a podcast on somebody and then they reach out right away. But sometimes it's not a good sign. But
No, it was great.
Wayne was great. And then obviously we got in touch. So love to start just kind of understand your background. I honestly we don't know each other too well for the audience, kind of just got introduced recently. So love to hear a bit more about you and kind of your background. I know obviously you're with Neo and that's where you kind of met some of the guys, but even going further back, if it's relevant, what kind of, what were the series of events that led you to starting Purelend?
Yeah, sounds good. No, you're absolutely right. I met both of my co-founders at Purelend working at Neo Financial. I was a early employee, one of the folks on the leadership team there from the early days, and was responsible for a few different areas of the business. But towards the end of my time there, I helped Wayne build the mortgage business at Neo, first as a broker and then a brokerage, and then navigated the process to become a lender. And so I was at Neo maybe 3 years total. I left a couple years ago, more for personal reasons to pursue a lifelong dream of this big motorcycle trip that I did.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Where was it?
Well, I started in Calgary, and it was about 60,000 kilometers actually. So I went north.
Oh my God.
Did the Arctic, and then all the way down to the southern tip of Argentina. I actually did a podcast on that whole trip.
Okay.
It's a long story, crashed
God.
and had to be medevaced out of Patagonia. And anyway, went back and finished the trip earlier this year.
Let's stop talking about mortgage tech. Let's just talk about that for an hour, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a life-changing experience. I'm happy to riff on it anytime.
Yeah.
But
I'll let you keep going.
Prior to Neo, I was with another company. Our whole business model was working with established industries to implement AI solutions and actually commercialize those products as joint ventures with our clients and spin them out. And we worked across like healthcare and banking and construction, oil and gas, and even vet tech. We had this one that I'm actually really proud of. It's for veterinarians, and
nice.
You can literally point your phone at a cat, or might even be working for other animals now, but it would actually tell you like what's wrong with this animal.
Oh my God.
Shockingly well. This was like a super early computer vision use case.
Yeah.
So
very cool. Yeah.
So the thread to start Purelend is probably obvious in that story. It's really the marrying of that.
Yeah. Thread the needle between the two. Yeah. So when would that have been kind of that, I guess AI, because that was before Neo, you said. And so I would guess, I think I was in your LinkedIn. I was like kind of pre 2020, like pre COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. That
And
would have been pre-COVID. Yeah.
now, you can't go anywhere without someone talking about AI. Like at NPC, we were just talking about the whole keynote
Yeah.
was about AI, right? And
Yeah. That's right.
it's everywhere. But that was very much so not the case. I mean, you tell me, pre
Yeah.
2020, pre ChatGPT, right? Like, what was kind of, I guess, just the vibe? Like, were people very excited about AI? Not really. Kind of like, hey, does this thing actually even work? What was it difficult to now? I would imagine it's a bit different, walking to a boardroom and saying, hey, I have an AI solution than it
Yeah.
was 6 years ago, but you probably know
Yeah.
best. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, back then it was a lot of education.
Yeah.
And so we would run these workshops where it was, educating the executive teams of these, fairly large companies about what is even AI and
Yeah.
sort of the problems to be solved in the business that, there was overlaps with the state of the technology in those days. But you're right, it really has come a long way. The advent of ChatGPT, drastically accelerated that learning curve for a lot of
Yeah.
us who now use ChatGPT and other tools in our day-to-day lives. And so we can kind of skip that education part and we can really focus in on the problems to be solved. Whether or not our tool uses AI for this or that really is irrelevant. It's like, does it do the job
Yeah.
that we're being hired to do? And luckily in Purelend's case it does.
Yeah. Luckily, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to ask you, like, are people more educated on AI? I think they're more aware, right? And they're more
Mm.
excited about it. But do you think there's still a gap of, and I don't really actually have an opinion one way or the other. I'm just more curious, like
Mhm.
what AI actually is. And like you said, what it can do, as a small example, we work with CRMs and people come in and say, hey, does your CRM do AI? And it's like, well, so the hype is there and all that. And,
Yeah.
I'm not going to,
Yeah.
disparage the people who are asking those questions because I get it, but it's just more like, well, we need to really unpack that. And like you said, at the end of the day, what you're trying to get to is what's the problem that you think maybe AI could solve, but maybe it's something else. So, what's been your experience? Yeah, I would assume the hype is there more, but maybe is the education where it needs to be? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think my take on that would be that, yeah, there's probably, it's a lot of hype in the media, a lot of even, fear mongering, frankly.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's misunderstandings about the technical specifics of how AI works and what's possible, but I don't know that even matters so much
Mm,
for the businesses that are looking to advance different areas of their operations with new
right.
technology. I kind
Yeah.
of alluded to this earlier, but whether or not it's actually AI
Right.
or something else, like I think what we all care about at the end of the day is are we freeing up time to focus on the areas of the business where we can add more value? Is this something that can actually help our businesses grow and operate more efficiently? I think the narrative and the conversations that we're having anyway are really focusing more down that path, and I think
Good.
that's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Like I think about the example, I always try to kind of tie it back to the internet revolution. And you
Yeah,
talk about emails, right? And like, do you need to be educated about emails? Do you need to know what an SMTP server or an IMAP
right,
server
right,
is?
right analogy. Yeah,
Or do you just need to open up Gmail and put in your thing and start firing off emails, right? And
yeah,
yeah, and I think that's probably right. So you touched on the fear mongering piece, and I think maybe that's a thread we can pull on a little bit there because
sure.
I agree, and I think I have my opinions on it. But you being in the space, maybe a good place to start. Like, have you had any of those? I guess you guys having an AI solution, and we'll get into what Purelend actually does, I think, in just a second, but have you kind of gone face to face with that at all where like people are actually coming up to you and saying like, I don't want to use you guys because of, the what AI might lead to and Terminator and whatever else, fear exists out there. And again, I don't want to minimize that fear because it's a real thing. You guys are kind of on the front lines with that in terms of fighting that or at least interacting with that kind of narrative, that fear mongering narrative. What's been kind of your on the street experience with that?
I mean, we've all seen the news headlines that AI is going to replace literally every job and super
Yeah.
intelligence and all of this. And I'm very skeptical of anyone that says they know exactly what's going to happen in the next even 5 years, let alone 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And so I won't claim to know exactly, but I do know that based on the current state of the technology and where we see it going over the next few years, that there's this old adage that it's not that AI is going to take your job or replace you, but it's that people who are using it could.
Using it.
And we see that real time.
You
You
do.
can imagine if you're
Nice.
a
Interesting.
mortgage broker, yeah, like to put this in the context of, Purelend, even to use a specific example. If you think about, you've got two mortgage brokers, one is spending all of their time with their customers, all of their time focused on new leads, building those relationships. You think about the things that, maybe robots aren't so great at,
Yeah.
And then have tools like Purelend to automate things like, sourcing large deposits, or like the hours of manual review that go into packaging a deal. I mean, those aren't the activities that grow your business. And then you compare it to a broker who is still spending, 60, 70% of their day poring over dozens of documents and just doesn't have the time to spend with their customers, to build those relationships, to work on new leads. One of those two is going to grow more quickly and
Sure.
wind up replacing the other. And we obviously believe that strongly, and we're here to help those that are keen on the being the former.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, every piece of technology ends up being a form of leverage, right?
Yeah.
However you want to do it, right? So, we talk about we're in the CRM space again, and this is maybe more, new technology as of 20 years ago, but it's still useful because, again, it's just leverage on your time, right? Being able to do more
Yeah.
with less. And then
It's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
Sorry, I
ahead.
was gonna jump in.
Yeah.
It's a good analogy, and it's it's no different than say you wouldn't hire an accountant today that refused to use Excel.
Yeah. Right.
You would be
Yeah.
highly suspicious, right? And so I think
Yeah.
we're just in the much earlier innings of
Yeah.
the sort of technology that is possible with AI
Totally.
to see the same results.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see the same thing a lot, as I'm sure you do, on like the privacy and security stuff. I hear a
Yeah,
lot of people say, "Hey, is it going to be on a US server?" And you guys can talk about maybe how you guys got around that, but in some case it is. And will you use my data to do different things? Will OpenAI use my data to do different things? And I say to those people, yeah, but you use Gmail. That's a US server, right?
yeah,
And again, it's just there's a little, and again, I'm not a legal expert and don't take my advice on any of this, but it's the same
yeah,
point, right? It's just this new
yeah.
technology comes with these new fears. And so one last question, and then I'll let you kind of do your elevator pitch on Purelend, would be just
Oh,
on
sure.
this thread. I think the real fear too, though, is okay, today it's helping me with documents, but tomorrow can it do those prospecting calls? And can it, you said
Mm.
those activities that maybe AI isn't so good at today, but is there a future in which, it is actually good at everything? It's better than me at everything. And that's a more, I think, you are more navel gazing, I guess. And you said, hey, that I don't, purport to know what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years, but
Yeah,
I'm going to put you on the spot a bit here and
sure.
ask you to do that, right? And say, do you
Yeah,
think there was a day that maybe that is the case?
yeah. I don't mind riffing on this a bit. I mean,
Yeah.
these are just my opinions, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah.
We've been hearing that the same thing, was true of the real estate industry for decades now, that real estate agents would be replaced because services like Comfree and others are technically feasible. And
Yeah.
now maybe you don't even need a real estate agent. But that hasn't been true, right? Real
Yeah.
estate agents obviously still exist. They still participate in the vast majority of residential real estate transactions. I mean, globally, let
Sure.
alone Canada. And why is that? I mean, a, a home purchase is such a emotional transaction for
Yeah.
everybody involved,
Yeah. Yep.
and that ability for humans to work together in situations like that, to for a mortgage broker, for a real estate agent to hold someone's hand through the process when they feel unsure or scared about it or upset about the transaction. I mean, these are just things that even if a robot can say the right words, probably isn't going to be great at, even in the medium to long term. And I think it just puts more emphasis on those roles to continue to exist and become even more important
Yeah.
as the stuff like what Purelend does gets more automated. It just makes those roles and those people even more important.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And yeah, there are going to be, moments in the mortgage process that will continue to get automated, like what you guys are doing at Purelend.
Yep.
But then, I always say in a mortgage transaction, something's probably going to go wrong somewhere along the way, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not, but let's just say,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
you're going to want to call someone and say, what the heck is happening? And you don't want it to be a
Yeah.
robot, right? You do want that
Yeah.
person there.
Good
And,
example.
I think the biggest differentiator I say that mortgage brokers have is trust, right? Just that trust. And I think that trust is a
Yeah.
human to human thing. And you compare it, you talked about real estate agents, comparing that to maybe travel agents, which I think definitely have gone down. But what's the difference is that the premium on the trust, right, is like, okay, if I trust a robot and I get the wrong plane ticket, that really sucks, but I'll be okay. But if I trust a robot and I get the wrong house or I pay too much or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like something goes wrong with that house purchase. That's the biggest
Yeah.
purchase of my life, right? And so
Yeah.
this is a type of transaction where trust is very important. There's a high premium on the trust, and that's not going to go away. So, anyways, we've kind of chatted around a bit on it, but I'll give you your spotlight now on Purelend. And yeah, I'd love to, for anyone who hasn't heard about you guys before, and maybe after MPC, you've made a bit more of a splash, but what's the elevator pitch? And what I'd ask is maybe just, like you said at the beginning, I don't, what's the problem you're solving, right? Ultimately, again, that's what I think people care about. What's the problem you're going after?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, I think both Wayne and I were surprised. Wayne's one of the co-founders of Purelend. We worked closely together building that national brokerage and lender previously. And I think that experience was surprising for us both, just to see not only how manual and time consuming a lot of the AML and income checks and so on are for mortgage brokers. Of course, we'd had that experience, but to see just how duplicate that effort was then with lenders who didn't have any better tools. They're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
That was eye-opening for us. So given our backgrounds, it just seemed like a no-brainer for us to enter this space where Purelend could really exist to help mortgage brokers and lenders focus on the areas of their businesses that actually help them grow, like those things that we were talking about, the time spent with their customer, building that trust and that relationship and so on, and spend less time on the manual, sourcing of large deposits, or is this income actually usable based on the lender's requirements? I mean, we spend hours on that on every single application. But we know that whether you're a lender or a broker, that, two things really win deals. It's the time that you can turn that deal around, how quickly you can do that, and then the rate. And those two things are intimately linked, because the less time that you have to spend on it, the lower your cost basis, the better
overhead
rate you can offer. So it just seemed like a no-brainer, and continued to be surprised that nothing existed out there where I can just load in the docs, have them be automatically organized, do all the down payment checks automatically.
Why hasn't anyone done that before?
Well, I think to do it reliably, the technology needed to advance a little bit.
Okay.
And with the release there are components of this solution that do require some of the more modern LLMs that have really only been released in the last year.
Okay.
And then it takes time to actually build them and so on. So I'm sure that we'll see others. I don't think we have any such big ego that we don't think that this is a otherwise impossible problem to solve. It's only ever going to be us that does it. But it does take a lot of work, even with the state of technology advancing over the last 6-9 months to a point where it becomes feasible. But I think that's why it hasn't. Just to directly answer your question, it's really only been feasible in the last 6-9 months.
Interesting.
And that's when we started working on Purelend.
Yeah, nice. Well, yeah, absolutely. That's great. It's the first problems you're addressing is that income verification, is that down payment verification, is that, and of course, organizing the documents. Is that right?
Yeah, we launched initially with down payment and then quickly added usable income, and then followed up with actually organizing the documents. I mean, we exist to really accelerate, if not fully automate, drastically accelerate that manual work that goes into packaging a deal. So down payment, usable income, organizing the documents. We now automatically check for any sort of some of the gotchas or potential deal killers, like, hey, this person appears to have a weird pattern of NSF
Interesting.
fees and gambling transactions. Like that's a little, the
Okay.
sort of stuff that can come
Yeah.
back from a lender after the fact that unless you're really looking closely for,
Mm.
you may miss. And we're just going to keep going from there. So we're launching stated income this week. So actually going through 12 months of bank statements and giving you tools not only to like see the end result, but then work with it
Yeah.
to
Okay.
finesse the deal, because we all know, like anybody working in that space knows every lender is different. Like you could go to,
Yeah.
I guess I won't name names, but like you go to, two lenders and get them telling you've got completely different amounts of net, income on
Yep.
these businesses. And so actually having the ability to work with it, and we're just going to keep going from there. The ability to collect documents. We're going to be giving real-time alerts to borrowers when something may be amiss
Right.
with their docs that could slow down their application. I mean, everybody knows where we spend the sort of the
Yes.
regrettable time packaging these deals. That's what we're going after.
Very cool. One thing that you kind of just touched on there is, you talk about giving the information back to the broker to be able to kind
Sure.
of work with it. I think with a lot of these AI applications, really any software, but I think AI is a good example of it, where you need to find that balance between, the AI being fully automated and,
Yeah.
being kind of your co-pilot, right?
Yeah.
Kind of being there with you.
Yeah.
Do you want to have, I don't know what the right analogy is there, but the fully automated, you know, system where everything just happens automatically, or just the one that kind of does the grunt work for you and then nudges you, right? So is there a fully automated version of Purelend which literally does that whole verification and sends it off to the lender without the, broker even being in the loop, right? That might be one extreme. Obviously, you guys are more, sounds like, in that co-pilot stage. Maybe you could have even gone more co-pilot, more manual. How do you kind of find that balance? And I guess I would imagine maybe it's just, user feedback, but is that a struggle for you guys? Is that something you've debated a lot?
Yeah, I mean that's actually a
Yeah.
phenomenal question for a lot of the reasons that you've highlighted. It's very difficult to make something fully automated
Yeah. But
that's
that's
going
what
to.
people want, right? Hey, can you just do everything for me and I sit on the beach,
Well,
right? Yeah,
I
in a
would push
sense. Yeah.
back on that.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Like I would say most of the people that we speak to don't want it fully automated. They
Mm,
still want
okay.
to, not just be in the loop, but ultimately a huge portion of the value that brokers are adding to this process is like based on the borrower situation, based on the lender they're submitting to, what's the right way to finesse this deal,
Yeah.
and that's not something that we're doing.
Mm,
We have definitely taken more of the co-pilot approach where say you upload all of the docs the borrower has given you and you run, say, our down payment report. We're going to tell you everything that, could cause friction potentially with the
right.
lender. Maybe
Yeah.
those things are going to wind up being an exception. Maybe it's something that you go back to the borrower for. We don't make that decision for
Yeah.
our
Nice.
customers.
Yeah.
And that's really important, just given the state of the technology, but also like you think back to like what are people good at?
Yeah.
It's those things. And that, I'm sure that, that line's gonna shift
For sure.
over time, but given the state of things today, we're constantly evaluating, are we drawing that line in the right spot? And, to answer your question, yeah, we think about it a lot. Like as we're deploying stated income, it's a key component of that feature is what is the user going to be able to do to then finesse that deal prior to
Right.
submitting to a lender, and what's our role in that
Interesting.
transaction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think, you go back, yeah, you touched on it. What are humans good at? What are brokers good at? We talked about the trust piece of it. I listened to a guy a little bit, read his book, Naval Ravikant. I don't know if you know that name. He's in the Silicon Valley. He did, I don't know,
Uh,
different things. And he talks about specific knowledge, this concept of specific knowledge. You can't read it in a book. It can only be learned
right.
from experience. And, it's probably the line you're trying to toe, right? Where there's non-specific knowledge, which is general knowledge, which is what you should be looking for in a bank statement. That's what you guys are solving. But then the specific knowledge is what that broker knows in their head, which is, hey, if I submit this file to this, not even lender, but like this BDM or this underwriter, what's going to be the response, right? And
Yeah.
hey, what's going on the borrower side and how do I match those things up? My personal opinion is that specific knowledge will never get replaced, or in a very, very, very long time. And so, I mean, I think it speaks to what you're saying, right? Where
Yeah.
there's that part that the humans are very good at.
Yeah. Like we'll be able to
Yeah.
take a guess. Like fast forward, imagine a world where all of the underwriting guidelines for different products are baked into Purelend, and we can tell you the different lenders and products that, this is likely going to be a fit with. Well, everything that you just mentioned, Tom, isn't in those underwriting guidelines.
Yeah. Sure.
So it still requires
Yeah.
someone in the loop to help make that decision.
Right. Yeah, and humans are good at it. Okay. Well, and listen, maybe I'll jump ahead, and maybe this is maybe I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, but one thing I saw on your website is a borrower portal, right? So
Yeah.
is there a world where, instead of what we just described, where you as a broker are collecting the documents, or a lender, I think you work with both brokers and lenders.
Yeah, we do.
Collect those documents, pop them into Purelend, get the feedback, go back to the or the borrower and share that. Is there a version where I can log in? Different solutions already exist out there a little bit where, at your borrower, you can send a link to your borrowers, they can log in, they can do an application, upload the documents. But now if it's on the Purelend solution, me as a borrower, once I upload the documents, I can get feedback right away. Is that the vision at least? And I don't know if I'm, like I said, jumping the gun and this is not a feature you guys are ready to talk about yet, but just curious if that is the vision. And if so, how does that line change when you're giving feedback to a broker versus a borrower?
Oh,
if
yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
The line does change.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so happy to talk about it. I mean, it's something that regrettably we've been sort of pushing out. I think back in September, I was telling folks, and if any of our current customers are listening to this, I am aware that I said this was 2 weeks out at the end of September, and we're now end of October, and we haven't released it yet. But we were constantly taking customer feedback to prioritize what features should we release next, and stated income won out in this case. People were a lot more excited about that feature, but this is still something that our customers are really keen on. So you're absolutely right, Tom. We're launching, and we've got it built internally. We're just going through some testing. The window behind this recording window is our test environment where I was going through some test cases for this feature. And you're absolutely right. We are going to provide the ability for our customers to collect documents from their borrowers directly using Purelend. And the advantage of that is not only, of course, that then they get automatically ingested, automatically organized. We automatically run the reports so that the first time that the broker or the lender sees it after being notified the docs have been sent is you immediately know, do I have everything I asked for? Are there any issues with down payment? Are there any issues with income? But beyond that, another thing that really takes a lot of time between brokers and borrowers specifically is that back and forth. Like, oh no, I asked for 90 days of statements, not 30, and on and on. I mean, we've all lived it. And that's a problem that we're addressing with this, where we will let the borrower know in real time a lot of those common gotchas, like exactly that. Hey, thanks for your bank statements. You've uploaded 30 days of bank statements, not 90. That's the sort of thing that could slow down your application. Do you want to take a minute to upload the other 2 months? And so specifically to your question around like, where do you draw that line? We're being extremely soft on this because with the borrower, the last thing that we would want to do, just thinking about our broker customers, is the last thing we would want to do is create any real friction between our customers and theirs. So you can imagine if we drew the line differently, where it was like, no, you cannot even share, you can't even upload these documents if you haven't given us absolutely everything that the broker's asked.
The submit button isn't available until I get every last possible. That
would be bad. So we're going really on the far end of that spectrum, where we're just letting the borrowers know, hey, this might slow things down, but doesn't prevent them from doing anything, and doesn't really slow them down from sharing docs with the broker. So where we draw that line is really important.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, like a simple example, even like a big deposit, right, to a broker, it's like, I guess that makes sense because of, AML and these FinTrack and different things like that.
Yeah.
Whereas to a borrower, they'd be like, what do you mean? Right.
Yeah.
And
we're not even showing them that.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
We have the capability, obviously. It's like core to the work we're doing with brokers, but we're not even going to surface things like large deposits, at least in the initial release. We want to start with this on the far end of the spectrum because there's such a risk. That's part that's part of the decision-making criteria on where you draw the line, right?
Yeah.
Like if we're a little overzealous on showing the broker, hey, you're missing like a day of statement coverage for this 90-day window. Well, there's really no downside risk. Like all our customers know that the warnings that they see are just like maybe an issue with the lender, and it's up to them to decide. Whereas like if we're showing that to a borrower and like they get this list of like 24 errors and alerts,
you just get exhausted.
It would be bad.
Yeah.
They would be exhausted. They're probably giving up. They're going somewhere that it's easier.
They're giving up.
The last thing we want.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to this other broker. I just upload everything. I hit submit and it's gone. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. That's interesting. And it's an interesting user experience problem at the end of the day. Right. And there's different users, right. And different experiences with it. Right. Interesting.
Absolutely.
And I guess the other thing, we can get into this a bit too, is also, I mean, I guess the risk of maybe getting something wrong even, right? Because, with these AI technologies, and I know from what I understand a bit, it's, of course, there's a big AI component, but there's other things you guys have layered in. It's not 100% necessarily, right? It's not, deterministic, it's probabilistic, and everyone's had hallucinations. They know what that is. So, for a hallucination, and you guys can talk about your accuracy in a second, to a broker who gets it, that's much more manageable, again, to the borrower who might be already upset or already nervous. Again, we talked about trust and being a big transaction. If they get a big red air, that whatever it might be, based on a hallucination, again, that's not a great experience. So talk to me a little bit about how you guys have thought about handling those, I guess, hallucinations, and the strides you guys have made to kind of make those better. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's, and you probably shouldn't do this for other reasons, but anybody that's taken their borrower docs, thrown them into ChatGPT and asked for hey, source all the large deposits, they'll know that like on the surface it actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
But then you start digging in, it's like, oh, like it made up the other side of this this deposit. Hallucinations are a real problem if you're going to over rely on, say, an LLM, on
just
AI,
an LLM
for
straight, right?
doing this work.
Yeah.
And not to give away our secret sauce, but we certainly have been required to, in order to tackle this, we need to decide like where is a more probabilistic answer okay, and where do we need something more deterministic, and how do these things integrate with each other to get the end result that our customers need. We've made great advances with accuracy. Our evals that we run with every deployment indicate we're between 92 to 96% accurate
really
and
good.
Consistent on across, and that covers like everything we do. But obviously that's not 100%. So we're already processing many hundreds of applications a month, even though it's only our second month in market. So that means you do the simple math. That means that there's still some that we have issues. We get that feedback from our customers, and we use that to continue to refine and tweak, where we're drawing that line between probabilistic and deterministic, and also, where we just need to like update prompts or whatever the case is. To get a better result.
I mean, 92, 96, I think that's excellent, right? Especially if you compare it to, whatever, a ChatGPT out of the box is probably, batting nowhere close to that, right? And that's, maybe that
not
shouldn't
to mention the privacy and security concerns of doing what I described. So if anybody's listening, don't do that. There are very good reasons.
Please do not do that. Yeah, that's right. But no, I mean, honestly, 92, 96, from my perspective, I think that's excellent. But I do think that there's maybe I don't know what the right word is, but almost like mindset shift for some people. Because I think, again, we've come from an era of deterministic software, right? And again, what that word means, right, is if I do something 1,000 times, if I do something 1,000,000 times, I'm going to get the same answer every single one of those times, 1,000,000 times getting the same answer. Whereas probabilistic, again, just for the audience, is to say, like, you can do it already. Ask a question to ChatGPT once, and ask the exact same question again, you're going to get a different answer, right? And so and what's happening is along the way, there's different there's basically a roll of the dice at every single word, every single token to say, what are we going to show next? And so inherently, when you have something probabilistic, it's not going to be that 1,000,000 out of 1,000,000, right? But I think that's the mindset of that a lot of people are used to. If I open up my internet and I type in whatever Google search, I'm going to get the same thing over and over and over, and maybe ads are different, but the search results are the same.
Yeah.
That's that's deterministic. And so that's a long way of saying, is that been an issue of just kind of accepting that, like going to your customers and saying, yeah, there is going to be maybe 5% error, but that's just kind of the way it is. Like, has that been a conversation, or is your guys' goal to get to that 100% or 99? Like, how do you guys think about that?
Well, of course, our goal is to get to 100%.
Sure. Yeah.
That easy
Yeah.
answer.
Easy answer. Okay.
And we're
Yeah.
we're constantly working on that. I really appreciated the approach. So we went through a successful pilot with a lender recently, and I really appreciated their approach to it. It was not only how much time is this saving us, of course, but what is the accuracy? Does it match what we came to when we went through and did this manually? And the benchmark wasn't 100%. It was, how does it compare to our own accuracy? Because there's this acknowledgement that, hey, we're not 100% either.
Right.
Back to the stated income example, if you, like I said, if you give two underwriters at the same lender, same alt lender, the same file, you're going to get different answers between them, what the actual usable income is on that file. And that's known and accepted. And I think the folks that are thinking about it the right way recognize that and see how something that's at least as accurate as a person doing it could fit into and accelerate their own work. Because 92 to 6% is certainly at least as accurate as a person doing the job. And then we do see people who look at it and maybe are a little more fearful, and I get it. Like I can really empathize with this. Like, change is scary, and if I've been doing this job the same way for the last 20 years, I might have a different reaction. I might sorry, I should finish that thought. If I've been doing this job the same way for the last 20 years, and I'm feeling a bit concerned about, okay, what does that change look like? Like, how am I actually going to spend my time if it's not on this? I can really empathize with that. And so there does seem to be this correlation where if maybe I'm feeling a little bit more that way, I'm going to be looking closer to 100%.
Yeah. Right.
For the
and then if like you said, have a lot of empathy for it. But if you do see that error, right, maybe that you've hit one of those 5% or whatever it is, you might be looking for that anyways, right? And you might be raising your hand and saying, hey, look at this. It's not nearly as good as what I am. And I think you're right. Like, it's such a good point, which is, what's our benchmark? Is our benchmark 100%, or is it as good as, the human? Because us as humans, we're not nearly, I don't think we bat 100% either, right? There's always error in it, but for humans, we have fail safes in place with that in mind. And I think so. And you can tell me if you disagree, which is, if I'm, I am a junior underwriter, let's say, and I'm batting 90%, I have a senior underwriter that's 95 plus or something that, approves or disapproves the things that I've worked on. Or we have insurance policies in place to say, hey, if we mess something up, we can file a claim and cover ourselves that way. Do you feel like it would be, similar? And this is, again, maybe more future looking with AI, where it's like you're going to have an AI, but then you're going to have a supervisor of that AI. Maybe it's kind of like a copilot thing. Are there going to be specific insurance policies to cover when an AI gets something wrong, not 100%? How do you think about that a bit?
Yeah, there's a few questions in there, and I'm not sure how much more time we have, but I would love to unpack that, especially the latter question there. But we've already built supervisors of the core AI into our tool, and it's part of how we've made it so accurate. And that's not secret sauce. That's just like anybody that works with these tools knows to do that, and it's an effective way to improve accuracy. I think where it gets really interesting, and this isn't forward looking, this is just based on the state of the technology today, is often people and technology like Purelend will actually make different mistakes. And so if you think about Purelend as that junior or intermediate underwriter that's doing the bulk of the heavy lifting for you, and then you're taking a moment to review it, maybe you catch maybe you catch something that you can tweak before submitting to the lender. The overall accuracy now goes way up. And there's lots of examples of that in AI over the years, like in super early days in radiology with AI. folks reading x-rays would make just complete, like almost no overlap, totally different mistakes than the AI would in actually diagnosing an issue through an x-ray. And so combined accuracy would just be through the roof.
Yeah.
And so in the super early innings, because obviously Purelend's only been around for a couple months, we're already seeing that emerge in the early days of our business.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, it's kind of like diversifying risk, right? It's like a stock portfolio, right? Where you get two different things that are, not correlated, and when you're not correlated, the overall risk of the entire stock portfolio goes down, right? And maybe it's something like that here.
Yeah.
Very cool. Maybe some closing words from you. I'd love to, I think, for the audience, anything you want to share, and also where they can reach you, where they can maybe, if they heard something today that kind of got them a bit excited, where could they maybe go and learn a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can learn more about us at our website, purelend.ai. And there's demos of most of our features there. And you can certainly reach out to get more information. And I'll probably be the one sitting with you doing a demo.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, yeah, this was great, Lucas. I mean, I'll get you on next week and we can go talk about your Patagonia trip. But
yeah, anytime.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. But no, this is great. I learned a ton about this. It's exciting. I think for me, one thing that I'll kind of, I've been talking about AI a bunch on this podcast, and there's a lot of great, I think, initial ideas out there. But I think what you guys are doing is one of the first few that I've really seen actually apply it to a real problem and making some real waves. So I'm excited to kind of follow your story, and thanks so much for coming on. It was great.
Thanks, Tom. This is a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Awesome.